Alright, so I'm going to do a video here on Ephraim, USA, Babylon. It's also Nineveh, right? And I'm going to show in this video all the connections between these prophecies about Ephraim, Babylon, Nineveh, right? And show how it's all talking about the same thing, which is this end days nation, a multitude of nations within a nation, right? It's the hammer of the whole earth. There's many different names for it, and it's all talking about USA prophetically. Okay, so I'll show that with some scripture here. Show some end days prophecy, right? Prophecy about the last days, which we are in. And then I'm going to also show how the Dead Sea Scrolls writers, right, the authors of some of those writings, how they basically agree with what I'm trying to present here and what we've really been teaching this whole time. And then I'm going to show some bad prophecy against USA, Babylon, how it is going to be destroyed. Ephraim, it goes into the pit. I'll even show that pretty early on here. But I'll start here in Genesis chapter 48, okay, and this is Israel's blessings to Joseph's two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. Now, Ephraim is the younger son, but he receives the firstborn blessing. That's important here because this represents the USA and Great Britain. Okay, so I'll show this. Genesis 48, verses 16 to 19. It says, "The angel which redeemed me from all evil," this is Israel speaking, or Jacob, "bless the lads, and let my name be named on them, and the name of my fathers, Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth." Okay, so they're going to be a great multitude. They're going to be pretty populous. "And when Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand upon the head of Ephraim, it displeased him, and he held up his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head unto Manasseh's head." Okay, so the right hand represents the firstborn blessing, but Manasseh was the older brother. "And Joseph said unto his father, Not so, my father, for this is the firstborn. Manasseh, put thy right hand upon his head. And his father refused, and said, I know it, my son, I know it. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great," Great Britain, right? "But truly his younger brother, USA, who comes out of Great Britain, shall be greater than he." And indeed, USA is greater. It is more populous, and it is stronger militarily and, just in power. "And his seed shall become a multitude of nations." It's going to be full of nations if you check the KJV margin, Strong's Concordance here. So it's going to have all these different nations within it as one whole nation. But really it's a bunch of different immigrant groups coming into it. It's a melting pot. That's what it is. This is Ephraim. And Manasseh, the older brother, does not receive the firstborn blessing. He will also be great, so that's Great Britain. So Ephraim and Manasseh represent USA and Great Britain. So that's one piece of evidence there. And then you go to the next chapter, and this shows you that it is, in fact, end days prophecy, if that wasn't clear already. It says in Genesis 49, verse 1, "And Jacob called unto his sons and said, Gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days." Okay, and then you go up, he starts talking about Joseph. And again, Joseph, he's the father of Ephraim and Manasseh, so the things that are promised to him are promised to his two sons. Okay, so Joseph is a fruitful bough, even a fruitful bough by a well, whose branches run over the wall. The archers have sorely grieved him, and shot at him, and hated him, but his bow abode in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty God of Jacob. From thence is the shepherd the stone of Israel. So we see there's going to be this blessing for Joseph, right? They're going to be very powerful. "Even by the God of thy father, who shall help thee, and by the Almighty, who shall bless thee with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that lieth under, blessings of the breasts and of the womb. The blessings of thy father have prevailed above the blessings of my progenitors unto the utmost bound of the everlasting hills. They shall be on the head of Joseph, and on the crown of the head of him that was separate from his brethren." Okay, so Joseph, right, his two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, the blessings here, he's going to be powerful. Right, this is from the Almighty. He's going to be the hammer of the whole earth even. That is what Babylon is called. And this is just to show that Ephraim and Babylon are referring to the same end days nation. I'll get a little more into that. Right, so they're going to have this blessing. And indeed, USA does have blessings, but they are turning those blessings into curses because they're being disobedient to God right now. They're not keeping the Ten Commandments. There's several ways in which this is the case. One of the most obvious is their idolatry that they're doing, their covetousness, adultery, all kinds of sins, really. But you also see in Genesis about Ephraim, or specifically Joseph, but it says, "Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors." Okay, this is many different peoples or nations within the USA. Okay, and you see also, "And it came to pass when Joseph was come unto his brethren, that they stripped Joseph out of his coat of many colors that was upon him, and they took him and cast him into a pit." Ephraim is going to go into the pit, and that is where they are going to die, but then they will be redeemed from death through tribulation. And I'll get into this too, how the tribe of Ephraim is not mentioned in the 144K, right? But the pit was empty, and there was no water in it. "And they took Joseph's coat and killed a kid of the goats and dipped the coat in blood." So Ephraim is going to be destroyed, right? There's going to be a lot of bloodshed there because God is going to send his punishments upon them. And, these people are going to be punished, right? Not just Ephraim, but Manasseh too. It talks about this basically in the commentary of the Dead Sea Scrolls on Nahum, and I'll get into that also. But the cup of Ephraim goes to Manasseh after basically it is drunken by Ephraim. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about Babylon. Now that we've established that Ephraim is the USA, well, let's see how Babylon is the USA as well. And really, there's a lot of nations and idioms that refer to the USA, this end days nation, in prophecy. But I just want to focus on a few in this video. But Jeremiah 50, verse 23. "How is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? How is Babylon become a desolation among the nations?" Right? So Babylon, it's the hammer of the whole earth. So it's going to be destroyed though, right? It's going to go into the pit. It's going to have blood all over it. And it's going to be destroyed by God's sanctified ones, by his battle axe, right? And that's also in the next chapter here. But point is, who is the hammer of the whole earth in these last days here, right? Is it talking about Iceland? Is it talking about South Africa? Is it talking about Japan? No, it's talking about USA, Mystery Babylon. That is who this is referring to, the most powerful end days nation. Right? We see also Jeremiah 51, verse 13, "O thou that dwellest upon many waters, abundant in treasures, thine end is come, and the measure of thy covetousness." Right? This is a big reason why they are destroyed. But you also see that they are dwelling upon many waters. Now this is important to point out, because people will look at this and say, "Oh, that's Old Testament. This is about the Babylon from 2,000 plus years ago." Well, no, that can't be the case, because the Babylon from 2,000 plus years ago did not dwell upon many waters. It was landlocked. So this clearly cannot be talking about Babylon. In fact, the people in Jeremiah's time were probably confused as to why he even said that. Babylon doesn't dwell upon many waters, right? That's not what it's talking about here, It's talking about this end days Babylon, the one that John was writing about in the book of Revelation that was already, there was a future one, not the one that was already destroyed when he was writing it. Okay, so Revelation 18, speaking of John writing in Revelation 18 verse 21, "And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, Thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all." Right? So Babylon, it's going to be found no more at all. It's going to be destroyed. But I want to point out that great city. This is a title given to it. And you see this title is also given to Nineveh. "Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry against it, for their wickedness has come up before me." So prophetically, Nineveh and Babylon are the same place, right? Now that I've established that USA is Ephraim, USA is Babylon, I want to show that USA is also Nineveh. Okay, because Nineveh is what is being talked about in the book of Nahum, and the Dead Sea Scrolls authors say that that city is Ephraim, and then that it is a nation in the last days. Okay, so that was Jonah, and now I want to show a lot of these comparisons here. So Nahum, chapter 1, verse 1, "The burden of Nineveh," the book of the vision of Nahum the Elkoshite. Okay, just to show that this book is about Nineveh. Okay, then we jump up, and I'm going to jump up mostly to the parts that are, just make it more obvious and clear that it's talking about Ephraim. And this is the part that I'm going to go over in the Dead Sea Scrolls commentary on Nahum as well. But Nahum chapter 2, verse 13 says, "Behold, I am against thee, saith the Lord of hosts, and I will burn her chariots in the smoke, and the sword shall devour thy young lions, and I will cut off thy prey from the earth, and the voice of thy messengers shall no more be heard. Right? So keep that in mind, because this is very similar language to what happens to Babylon, and this is speaking against Nineveh. Remember, the burden of Nineveh, that's what Nahum is about. Right, so Revelation 18, we already read verse 21, but again, I'll just read. That great city, thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. And the voice of harpers and musicians and of pipers and trumpeters shall be heard no more at all in thee. Right, sounds a lot like what we just heard here. And no craftsman, of whatsoever craft he may be, shall be found any more at all in thee. And the sound of a millstone shall be heard no more at all in thee. And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee. And the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. For thy merchants were the great men of the earth. For by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. And in her was found the blood of prophets and of saints and of all that were slain upon the earth. Okay, so this great nation, Babylon, the hammer of the whole earth, the sound of these people is not going to be heard, just like it's not going to be heard in Nineveh either. It's referring to the same thing, the same place. Right, and also worth pointing out, it says, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. This is a very important point, because this is one of the reasons why God is going to be angry at this end days nation, why he's going to destroy them. They're spreading their sorceries. They're spreading their pagan holidays, Christmas, Easter, Halloween. Even their sun god day worship, all this stuff is idolatry in the eyes of God. It has nothing to do with the actual worship for the God of Israel. He never commanded you to celebrate Christmas. That's a pagan practice. It's called Yule. It's called Saturnalia. It has nothing to do with the actual birthday of the Messiah. December 25th is not when he was born. You can check Luke chapter 2. There were shepherds with their sheep out at night. That doesn't happen in the middle of winter, right? So really, it's a sun worship festival. Saturnalia, Sol Invictus was honored on December 25th. Many other pagan sun gods, because it was the winter solstice on the Julian calendar. They thought the days grew longer. Easter, that's Queen of Heaven worship. The bunnies, the eggs, those are fertility symbols, right? Do I even need to explain how Halloween is witchcraft? But all this stuff, this is what you guys are spreading to the nations that you go and proselytize people in, and you're making them twofold disciples, the children of hell, just like the Messiah says about the Pharisees, because you guys are teaching them to do pagan witchcraft instead of keeping the actual commandments of God, like the Sabbath day, for example. That's the day you should be keeping, if anything. But you're spreading your sorceries. You're spreading your ways to even the strangers. Jeremiah chapter 3, talking about Israel, right, which Israel is scattered into Babylon. It's Ephraim, remember, right, this head of all these other nations where the northern kingdom was scattered. And this is what you guys are spreading instead of the true gospel. So this is why God is pissed off. You're teaching people idolatry and covetousness, telling your kids to basically covet after a bunch of stuff. This is why Ephraim is going to be destroyed. Babylon is going to be destroyed. And also Nineveh. Okay, so I'll keep going to show the connections further. It says Nahum chapter 3, verses 1 to 3. It says, woe to the bloody city. It is all full of lies and robbery. The prey departeth not. The noise of a whip and the noise of the rattling of the wheels and of the prancing horses and of the jumping chariots. The horseman lifteth up both the bright sword and the glittering spear, and there is a multitude of slain, and a great number of carcasses, and there is none end of their corpses. They stumble upon their corpses. Right, so the destruction is going to be so great, there's going to be corpses everywhere. They're going to stumble all over them. Right, what do we see about Babylon? Revelation 14, verse 8, and there followed another angel, saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Right? Fornication against God. They're committing adultery against God by going after other gods. That's who they're serving. Also calls it the land of graven images, like your Statue of Liberty, for example. Right? But the wine, right, that represents spirits. So you're teaching people these spirits of error. Like, that's what you're giving people. You're not giving people the spirit of truth. You're not teaching them the true gospel so they can believe and be saved, but you're teaching them witchcraft instead and lawlessness. So that's the wine that you're giving them. It's bad wine. Right? And then verse 20, and the winepress was trodden without the city, and blood came out of the winepress, even unto the horse bridles, by the space of 1,600 furlongs. So that is an enormous amount of blood. And that matches with all the corpses that are going to be there, as Nahum tells us. Right, we keep going in Nahum chapter 3, verses 4 to 7, because of the multitude of the whoredoms of the well-favored harlot, right? You are a harlot if you're going after other gods. That's how God sees you. He calls you a whore, right? And your whoredoms, that is your witchcraft, your idolatry, your pagan practices. That selleth nations through her whoredoms and families through her witchcrafts, teaching them to other people. Again, behold, I am against thee, saith the Lord of hosts, and I will discover thy skirts upon thy face, and will show the nations thy nakedness, and the kingdoms thy shame. They're going to be exposed and destroyed. And I will cast abominable filth upon thee, and make thee vile, and will set thee as a gazing stock. And it shall come to pass that all they that look upon thee shall flee from thee, and say, Nineveh is laid waste, and who will bemoan her? Whence shall I seek comforters for thee? Right, so this is prophecy against Nahum, calls it the multitude of, the well-favored harlot, the mistress of witchcrafts, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. It's the same place. Right, and this is very familiar language to what Isaiah speaks against Babylon. Isaiah 47 here, it says, Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon, sit on the ground. There is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans. Right, and that's just another name for the Babylonians. For thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate. Right, and specifically the Chaldeans are probably the evil family of Judah running USA Mystery Babylon. It says, Take the millstones and grind meal, uncover thy locks, make bare the leg, uncover the thigh, pass over the rivers. Right, their shame, their wickedness is going to be exposed. Thy nakedness shall be uncovered, yea, thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance, and I will not meet thee as a man. God's vengeance in the last days, right, Deuteronomy 32. As for our Redeemer, the Lord of hosts is his name, the Holy One of Israel. Sit thou silent and get thee into darkness, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called the Lady of Kingdoms. I was wroth with my people, I polluted mine inheritance, and given them into thine hand. Thou didst show them no mercy. Upon the ancient hast thou very, very heavily laid thy yoke. So God's people, including Ephraim, they are scattered into Babylon. They dwell with the daughter of Zion, the daughter of Zion dwells with the daughter of Babylon, and he calls his people to come out of Babylon, right? Because they were put there as punishment because they got scattered for learning the ways of the heathen, 2 Kings 17. They were cut off and divorced for idolatry, but now Yeshua's blood allows them to be grafted back in, as well as any other Gentiles who want to start keeping the covenant of God too. Right, so that's why he says, come out of her, my people, at the very least spiritually is what that means. Don't be partaking with all these churches teaching lies and pagan witchcraft and lawlessness, right? You're supposed to be separate. Ephesians 5 says, have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them, right? So that is what the children of light are doing. They're rebuking sin in Mystery Babylon and their churches. They're not having fellowship with them. They're teaching the so-called believers to stop profaning God's name by calling themselves believers, but not doing anything that God actually has them do, commands them, right? And now it's our punishment because we were scattered into this nation that we have to be subject to their government and their rulers, except we disobey the specific rules they give us that cause us to break God's laws. That's the only exception there. Right? So the yoke of Babylon is going to be broken off at the same time that he brings his people out, and this is about the second Exodus. But I'll keep going here. And thou saidst, I shall be a lady forever, so that thou didst not lay these things to thy heart, neither didst remember the latter end of it. Therefore hear now this, thou that art given to pleasures, right, they live deliciously, Revelation 18, that dwellest carelessly, that sayest in thine heart, I am, and none else beside me. This is blatantly the same thing that John is quoting in Revelation 18. Right? So Babylon, it's the same one that Isaiah and Jeremiah are prophesying about. It's the last days. This is not prophecy that has been fulfilled yet. It says, I shall not sit as a widow, neither shall I know the loss of children, but these two things shall come to thee in a moment, in one day. The loss of children and widowhood, they shall come upon thee in their perfection, for the multitude of thy sorceries, and for the great abundance of thine enchantments, for your paganism, for your Christmas and your Easter. That is why you are going to have your men going to war, and a man is going to be more precious than the golden wedge of Ophir, right? So that means they're going to die, right? There's not going to be a lot of men left. You're going to have a lot of widows and fatherless people because of your sins. And this is what Leviticus 26 says. When you disobey the holy covenant, go after other gods, profane God's commandments, then he is going to punish you with curses. But if you obey them, you keep his commandments like the Sabbath, then blessings come instead. Verse 10, for thou hast trusted in thy wickedness, thou hast said, none seeth me. Thy wisdom and thy knowledge it hath perverted thee, and thou hast said in thine heart, I am, and none else beside me. Very prideful, not a care in the world about anything but themselves. Therefore shall evil come upon thee, thou shalt not know from whence it riseth, and mischief shall fall upon thee. Thou shalt not be able to put it off, and desolation shall come upon thee suddenly, which thou shalt not know. Right, in 1 day, in 1 hour. Right, and let's just make this, abundantly clear. This is Babylon that John is speaking about as well. Mystery Babylon. And after these things I saw another angel, this is Revelation 18, come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Right, this is probably because the devil is going to be cast down upon Ephraim in Isaiah chapter 28. It's mentioned in Revelation 12 as well. But the devil's going to be cast down. It's going to have all these devils in it because that is where the devil and a third of the angels are going to go. And the spirits there are going to get even worse than what they are right now. So if you thought USA was wicked now, and the people there were very godless in their actions, well, it's going to get even worse. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Right, we read this earlier as well. And the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. Right, they're all learning the ways of the heathen. And the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. Right, talks about her merchants a lot because she is very covetous. She loves all these possessions. She just wants more and more and more. She can never be satisfied. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, that ye receive not of her plagues. Even that is the royal law right there. If you don't rebuke sin, you are a partaker of it. So if you're just fellowshipping with the churches of Mystery Babylon, USA, then you are going to go to the same place as them if you're not there to rebuke them. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her double according to her works. In the cup which she hath filled, fill to her double. How much she hath glorified herself, and lived deliciously, right, given to pleasures, so much torment and sorrow give her. For she saith in her heart, I sit a queen, and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Therefore shall her plagues come in 1 day, death, and mourning, and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord God who judgeth her. Right? The Lord, he's going to come back at his second coming. He's going to slay these people, right? He's going to come with fire in his sword. He's going to slay eaters of swine's flesh, right? You guys live deliciously. You're given over to pleasures. You're lovers of pleasures more than God. That's why you guys are eating pork and shrimp, even though the Bible says not to eat that stuff. It's unclean. But the Lord is going to slay people who eat that stuff at his return, and you guys are among those people in USA. And the kings of the earth, who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her, shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, right? Mighty city, mighty in power, the hammer of the whole earth. For in 1 hour is thy judgment come. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise any more. The merchandise of gold and silver, precious stones and pearls, fine linen, purple, silk, scarlet, and all fine wood. Right, so all kinds of stuff. Okay, that's the point. Right, so hopefully that shows you, like, this is end days prophecy, what we read in Isaiah chapter 47. This is also Nineveh, right, with all the merchants. Nahum chapter 3, verse 16, Thou hast multiplied thy merchants above the stars of heaven, the cankerworm spoileth and fleeth away. Right, so merchants, right, same thing. Nineveh has a lot of them, so does Babylon, because they're both USA.